What's the most valuable item you found that someone threw away? When I was 23 and broke as hell, working from my tiny apartment and sleeping on a mattress on the floor, I saw this estate sale flyer taped to a telephone pole. The guy had died with no family listed anywhere, and they were selling everything dirt cheap just to clear out the house. I needed a desk bad because I was doing freelance graphic design on my kitchen table, which was basically a folding card table from Walmart. My laptop kept sliding around every time I moved, and my back was killing me from hunching over. So I drove over there on Saturday morning with $40 in my wallet. The house was packed with random people digging through boxes of old books, kitchen stuff, and furniture that looked like it hadn't been moved since the 8S. That's when I spotted this oak desk in the corner of the living room. It was heavy as hell, definitely real wood, not that particle board garbage. The finish was worn down in spots where someone had probably rested their arms for years, but it was solid, $20. I counted out a 20 and told the estate sale lady I'd take it. Getting it home was a nightmare. Had to borrow my neighbor's pickup truck and recruit 2 guys from my apartment complex to help me carry it up 3 flights of stairs. We were all sweating and cursing by the time we got it into my place. The desk had this weird smell, like old paper and coffee stains. There were water rings on the top for mugs, and the drawers stuck when you tried to open them. I spent that whole weekend cleaning it up with wood polish I bought at the dollar store. That's when I noticed something weird about the back panel. There was this tiny gap, like there might be another drawer hidden behind the regular ones. I tried pushing on it, pulling on it, but nothing happened. Finally, I grabbed a butter knife from my kitchen and started prying at the edge. After about 10 minutes of being careful not to break anything, this narrow drawer popped open. It was maybe 6 in wide and had been painted over so many times you could barely see the seam. Inside was this little velvet pouch, the kind you might get jewelry in. It was faded and dusty, and when I opened it up, there was what looked like an old dime sitting in there. I almost threw it away. I mean, it was just a dime, right? But something about it looked different. The design was weird, and it had this date on it that said 1916. I figured maybe it was worth like 50 cents or something to a coin collector. But I was curious, so I looked it up online. That's when I found out about Mercury dimes, and specifically the 1916 D ones. Apparently, they only made a few hundred 000 of them in Denver. And if you found one in good condition, it could be worth serious money. My hands were actually shaking when I read that some of them sold for $15,000 or more. I kept staring at this tiny coin, thinking there was no way something sitting in a $20 desk could be worth that much. I took it to this coin shop downtown the next week. The old guy behind the counter put on these special glasses and examined it under a magnifying light for like 20 minutes. He kept flipping it over and looking at the edges, muttering to himself. Finally, he looked up at me and said, "Where did you get this?" I told him about the estate sale and the hidden drawer, and he just nodded slowly. He said it was definitely real, definitely a 1916 D and in excellent condition because it had been protected in that pouch all these years. He offered me $12,000 for it on the spot. $12,000. I was making maybe 25 grand a year at my freelance job. So this was like finding half a year's salary in a desk drawer. Before I sold it, I got curious about the guy who owned the house. I went back to the estate sale organizer and asked about him. Turns out he'd been this quiet old man who collected coins his whole life. But when he got sick a few years back, he had to sell most of his collection to pay for medical treatments. This dime must have been one he forgot about, hidden away in that secret drawer. Maybe he put there years ago and just never remembered where he'd stashed it. The estate sale lady said he lived alone and never had visitors toward the end. I ended up selling the coin for $13,500. First thing I did was pay off my student loans completely. Just like that, I went from owing 18 grand to being debt-free for the first time since college. But then I kept thinking about this old man who died alone, whose coin collection had kept him going through his medical bills. So I took $1,000 and donated it to the hospice, where he'd spent his last few weeks. When I told the estate sale organizer what I'd done, she actually started crying. She said she'd been helping with his care near the